more than I do about sort of the Bangladesh War of Independence. So that's where
Yeah,
I want to
sure.
start. Could you tell us a bit more about the Bangladeshi War of Independence and why this year particularly was such an important celebration?
I think before we start on the War of Independence, I think what we need to understand is the whole political subcontext of the situation and how it came to be, how we came to be East Pakistan. We need to understand that. So through the partition of India, um, Bangladesh, based on a majority Muslim country, became part of Pakistan when it was then East Pakistan. We were known as East Pakistan, with 1,000 kilometers between us, and the rule actually took place from West Pakistan. Muhammad Ali Jinnah was the architect, or it was part of his vision and part of what happened by the English colonial rulers that did the partition. But I think if Muhammad Ali Jinnah didn't die so quickly, I think things may well have been slightly different, because he had visions and he had a greater appreciation for certain things. But sadly, he died soon after partition, and then things started to change a lot. Political powers changed and so on. And in my view, what kind of the precursor to the Bangladeshi independence was in 1952, where West Pakistan tried to impose Urdu as a national language. And during that decree, there was student protest, which was held in 1952, 21st of May. And it was a peaceful protest led by students from Dhaka University. And this student protest was attacked and shot at, and 5 people sadly lost their lives. Salam, Jabbar, Tariq, I think. The other 2 names don't come to me straight away. And that was the kind of movement that sort of led towards this feeling of nationalism and so on, and we want our own state and so on. And Sheikh Mujib was very active in the Awami League. He was a very charismatic leader. I mean, he wasn't the only one. There's many other notable leaders during that period, but he is very much seen as the leader that emerged to make Bangladesh independent. So what most people don't know is that in 1970 December, there was an election, okay? And Sheikh Mujib won the election. He won something like 90% of the vote. He should have been the president or the prime minister of West Pakistan and East Pakistan. But the power at the stage was Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and I think Yahya Khan. They did not concede power. They were not going to give up power to this Bengali leader at the time. So he was not allowed or invited to form a government. And
So
on, yeah,
sorry,
go
can
on.
I just interrupt there? Can I just ask a
Yeah.
question? So was he voted by the West people in West Pakistan and people in East Pakistan to be the ruler of all of Pakistan?
Yeah, so he
Okay,
won something
I
like
didn't know that.
80%. Eight, well, you can unravel it all where the votes came from. Awami League had a presence during that period. During that period, you had the Muslim League, PKK, Pakistani People's Party, and so on. So the votes got pretty split up, and Sheikh Mujib kind of won overwhelming majority of the votes, and he was supposed to be the president, and he wasn't invited to form a government. So that's just subcontext that you need to understand. And on the 6th of March, Sheikh Mujib gave a rousing speech. Something like 10,000 people were there, or maybe more, at the Dhaka racecourse on the 6th of March, 1971. And that speech, it was just so powerful. It's akin to what Martin Luther King did. It's as powerful as that. And that speech is the speech that galvanized the nation. He said, Ebare Shangram, Shadinata Shangram. This fight is for freedom, and it's translated like that. And this speech is now recorded and kept with UNESCO as a famous speech and so on. So that's how powerful that speech is. Um, on the 26th of March, or leading up to that, he was arrested and he was flown to West Pakistan and kept in a jail. And then um, General Zia announced independence of Bangladesh through radio, and then he said on the name, and then he announced again, and he said in the name of Sheikh Mujib. So Sheikh Mujib is very much referred to as the father of the nation and so on. And the War of Independence lasted 9 months, and some estimates say up to 3 million people were killed. That's never been verified. On the 26th of March, they set up Operation Searchlight, where they um, attacked civilians and so on. And there's some
It was
horrific
West
things that,
Pakistan on East Pakistan, yeah.
yeah, and there was some horrific things that happened along the way. You had what you call the Razakars. There was some people who even to date argue that Bangladesh should have remained with Pakistan. It's a Muslim country and so on. So there are those sentiments, and it was those Muslim League people and Razakars and what you call them. They were the collaborators with the Pakistani army, and they went around and showed people who were non-Bengali. Actually, what they would do with some of the men is they'd ask them if they were Muslim, they'd ask them to speak Kalima and so on, because at the time and still Bangladesh has a has quite a sizable Hindu population and Buddhist population, and if they weren't able to recite it, they were killed. On other occasions, they were asked to take their trousers down to see if they were circumcised. So some horrific things happened. The women, uh, between 200,000 to 400,000 women were raped. They were kept in rape camps. So it's horrific genocide. It was Tariq Tariq Ahmed, or Tariq Ramadan, talks about the first act of genocide after World War II. So towards the end, they were trying to wipe the intelligentsia out of the Bangladeshi community. So they identified intellectuals, reporters, and so on, and they killed people on the 15th of December, even though they knew they were going to surrender. So the other thing to bear in mind is the geopolitics that was being played out at the time. So if you speak to some Pakistani people, they said, "Oh, well, we were at war with India as well." And the truth is, all wars have allies. If you look at World War II, Britain had America and lots of allies. So India was our ally. But Pakistan's ally was America. US gunships were en route to the Bay of Bengal. So geopolitics was being played out across the world at that time, and Bangladesh was no different at the time. We did win through the aid of India. They opened their borders. They helped to train our guerrilla force, which is called the Mukti Bahini. And India opened up their borders. There were camps, refugee camps, and so on doing there. And Bangladesh organized itself through one of the leading figures and the architecture of the war was General Usmani, who was the colonel at the time, and he is the one who's credited with organizing the forces that fought back, and civilians fought back, and so on. So it was a horrendous period of our history, and you know we lost a lot of people. It was a sad period, and if I was a young man at that time, I'd have fought and probably died, but I'm glad I didn't have to make that choice. I was one at the time, and I still get very emotional about it all. But you know, we are here, and you know, if anybody asks, we are descendants of warrior poets and freedom fighters. So don't take us lightly. You know, we will stand and fight, regardless of our diminutive figures and so on. So you know, we have a proud heritage and history that we emanate from.
I mean, that's exactly why I started. Again, one of the many reasons why I wanted to get you on. I saw a tweet from, I don't know how I actually saw a tweet from you. I think Jess Phillips might have replied to you or something like that.
Oh yeah, the one with my arms up like that, hands
Yeah,
up.
I think so.
Yeah, yeah,
I think Jess, because I follow Jess Phillips, and I think she replied to you, and it was on the day, the anniversary of the Bangladesh War of Independence.
yeah,
I was like, oh, I wonder who this guy is. And so I clicked on your profile, and then I saw you had a blog. I checked out your blog, and I was like, you know what, this guy's got a really interesting story. And I've always wanted to know more about the Bangladesh War of Independence. You know, and I've spoken to my grandma about it, and my dad sort of translated it back to me, but we've never sort of as a family properly ever kind of talked about it. It's only if I persistently ask questions, but I'm always sort of hesitant to ask because obviously my grandma was there, and she, you know, you know, she's told me like a few little stories of what it was like, and I think I remember her telling me something about how they could hear like guns coming from the
yeah.
distance and they had to run away. So I don't like to ask too many because I understand it probably
It's trauma.
yeah, it's traumatic for her, obviously. So I don't want to ask her too many questions. And my granddad passed away a few years ago, so I can't ask him any questions. And so I wanted to get you on to tell me more about that. And I just find it so fascinating. Just before we sort of get onto your story, I've just got a few quick questions about what you said. So you mentioned there, so so Jeep, oh, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened to him? Because the last thing I heard from you was that he went to prison.
Yeah, so whilst he was in prison, he was declared the president of Bangladesh. After independence, he came and he was initially the president of Bangladesh, and then he became the prime minister of Bangladesh. He's referred to as the father of the nation. Bangabandhu is the word that's used for him. But within 4 short years of his rule, sadly, he didn't rule very well. He was faced with famine and unemployment and so on. And there was political cronyism, nepotism, and so on. So he was getting certain things wrong, basically. And towards the end of his life, he declared martial law. He was a socialist to start with, and he had a very good relationship with Cuba, actually, with Fidel Castro. So there's photos